Hi, I'm Tim Musgrove, and I'm going to talk a little bit about where I come from and what I'm going to be doing in this course here, Natural Language Processing for SMU. Some of the folks at SMU reached out to me and asked if I could do this because they preferred a person, they said, who had done a lot of NLP actually in practice for real companies um, uh, where it was really pivotal to their job and to the company rather than get someone that has been just kind of purely in the academic world only. And so that's me. I did teach at a number of universities years ago in California in different things. But for so many years now, I've been up in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, um, where I've done a lot of stuff. I've worked for either public companies or venture-backed companies all of the time. Some of the companies that have used technology in NLP made by me or my team includes Yahoo, CNET, a bunch of websites, all the IDG sites like Macworld and PC World, General Motors Corporation, Gannett, all of their 300 websites, including the websites of all the news organizations like USA Today, also Reuters, lots of digital media companies. And so what's in common to those, as you can imagine, there's companies there that have just millions of web pages, millions of news articles, millions of documents, and so a great demand to get a handle on all of that with NLP. So I'm very much bringing the perspective here of what it's like to actually work for companies doing NLP. The way I got into this is a little bit weird. My father was a computer programmer as I was growing up, and he used to grab me and bring me with him to the computer lab at the university in Sacramento, actually, and I just sort of hung out there and maybe got interested in it. And then I'm also, I had a mother who was one of the first adopters of a PC. So I'm old enough, I can remember when PCs first came out. And the first ones were as big as a suitcase and cost $5,000, even for the cheapest one you could get. And my mom bought one of those $5,000 suitcase-sized PCs. And so I would sneak into the den and use it every minute that I could. And computer graphics weren't very good in those days. And so some of the games were text games. And two of the most famous ones were called Adventure and one called Zork. And in both cases, it would just make you use your imagination, and it was basically crude NLP. It would just put a sentence on the screen that said, you're in a stone cold room that has a big ugly orc guarding the only exit from the room, and the only other thing in the room is a table and a chair and a bucket. What do you want to do? And you could type, pick up the bucket, throw it at the troll. And it wasn't very smart. It couldn't recognize very many words. But I was fascinated by that somebody was trying to make you be able to interact with the machine through text, and it would type text back at you. And I was maybe 13 years old, and I was hooked. I've been hooked ever since at trying to get machines to understand words. I ended up getting a PhD in a related field. I actually did philosophy of language, which is like the theory of linguistics. How does language really work? And the whole time I stayed in touch with computer science. Even when I took an Aristotle course, I convinced the instructor to let me turn in a software program instead of an essay about Aristotle. That's right. I built a semantics analyzer based on Aristotle's categories to try to see how good his linguistic categories were if you tried to make a program understand sentences using Aristotle's categories. Found out it was pretty good, by the way. So then I started working in the industry until here you go. The phone rings and SMU wants me to do this for you. So I'm going to take a particular approach to treating these topics that's going to be very practical. I'm going to be talking the entire time about what it's like for you when you have a real job in a real company doing NLP. You're going to learn things like how to take any two words and say whether they're similar to each other or not. And you can do that with millions of words, even if they're words you've never heard of before, even if they're words that were just invented yesterday. And you could say which words are similar, which aren't. Same thing with documents. Given any two documents, do they belong together, or are they very, very different from each other? If you want to classify them in certain categories, how to do that on an automated basis. If there's emotive quality sentiment in the text, how to detect it. Are people angry or happy or sad when they're saying what they're saying in documents? We're going to do lots of stuff like that. Usually there's going to be several options, several trade-offs how to do it. We're going to explain the pros and cons of all of those. We're going to point to particular tools and packages that you can use in Python or in other programming languages. Doesn't really matter which language, in order to do all of these things. And so it is going to be a practitioner's course. It's going to be very, very practical. So we use machine learning for some of this, but this is not your machine learning course. There's another course at SMU on that. So we'll be talking about how to use a machine learning package to make it perform for NLP. This is also not your linear algebra class. This is not your math class, so I'm not going to make you dive deep down into the linear algebra that you need to understand some of the algorithms that we use, but I will require that you understand why it's useful and how to adjust the knobs and dials and tune it up and down in certain parameters and why you would want to. So it's going to be kind of like very nuts and bolts. I'm trying to turn you into sort of an NLP mechanic that really knows how to put things together and make them work and make them go, right? So hopefully this will be a lot of fun. I promise whether you want to look at NLP as like one of your main focus areas in your career, or even if you just want to mainly be an all-around data scientist who occasionally invokes some NLP methods to sort of polish up or improve your data science, either way, there's going to be a lot of useful things in here.